join us.
Yeah, but I think we can get started.
Oh, so he's saying that his audio interface isn't compatible with Skype or
What?
or some sort of a device that he's using. Yeah, Skype oftentimes kind of gets left off of the map.
Well, as long as it's it, I've never had it not like a. What can I do then for him?
I don't know. Can we bring him in on Zoom?
Not easily. And we're live, by the way. So if you want to talk to everybody while I'm working this.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so Dan's used to using Zoom like just about everybody else is these days, and Skype is. It's kind of interesting. Skype's not being used as much anymore, but it's still a good tool and good platform. But so we're going to try and bring Dan Franks in maybe on Zoom. So that's what Todd's working on right now.
See, I don't even have Chrome loaded on this machine because we never use the browser.
Oh, that's yeah. It's probably not a bad idea to have that as an option.
Well, it doesn't help because now I got to download Chrome.
Right. It's not exactly a fast way for us to get started.
No, and so I've never had anybody not be able to come in via. Yeah,
Skype. Right.
Yeah. I figure out what my Zoom password is. I use a. My God, this is going to be a night.
Well, Ben, because with your TriCaster, we should be able to use any of these platforms.
Any of them, but I just don't have it set up. I'm not set up to run Zoom. I'm set up to run.
Right. I wonder if there's some advantages for us shifting over to.
It's a pain in the ass because I've got 2 call-in lines. Zoom is designed to have 3, 4, 5 people in it, and
yeah. Right. So hopefully Dan will be able to get us going here. I mean, at the very least, I guess once you get that downloaded, Todd, we can at least get the show going, and he can just join us when he's able. So we'll probably have to send him a Zoom link, won't we?
Which I have none of my. See, I'm going to have to read you the number because I don't have any
output going on there.
Yeah. All right, give him this meeting number 143.
Wait. What? Okay. 143
353
353
051. This is a real old meeting. Hopefully it'll work.
051. Okay, well, he's trying to dial in now, he said.
Oh, there's.
Okay. Okay, you got him.
Can you hear us now, Dan?
I got you. You guys got me.
Oh, awesome.
So I was just installing Zoom on that machine to try to make something work here. So
Yeah, sorry about that. I've recently now discovered that a very well-known, I guess you call it audio interface manufacturer, works great until you open it up in Skype and then it crapped out completely twice in a row.
oh, that's nice. So, all right. So let me do the official start so we don't have a whole bunch of this going on when we do this production. But everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. We've been working a few minutes here to get Mr. Dan Franks in. Dan, welcome to the New Media Show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I think it's my first call with you in the new studio, the new setup.
Ah, that's right. I think it's been maybe that's true. Because last time we would, well, I don't know. Yeah, I think so. Because
Well, we would have had Dan on a couple months ago if it wasn't for this COVID thing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
lots of things would have happened for that, right?
right.
Yeah. Yep.
And it looks like you're kind of in a new location too, from the background we're seeing.
Yeah, home office, sharing the home office. So that's a good thing, though. So we're on the same page about sometimes we've got to do interviews, right? That's just part of it. So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or Zoom calls, right?
or Zoom calls. Yeah, one too many Zoom calls. I'll raise my hand for that.
It used to be death by PowerPoint. Now it's death by Zoom.
I
Right.
think so. And it's the interesting thing is now all of a sudden we're having these Zoom calls when we would have just traded emails with somebody or done a regular phone call. But now all of a sudden, people that you would have just had a regular phone call with are wanting to see your face, I guess. That's all. It's interesting that why we've gone like not just up to the line, but over it when it comes to video calls for everything.
You know,
yeah.
I have to mention, I went bald and you grew a beard.
I grew
So
a beard and I haven't cut my hair in like 6 or 7 months. So yeah, we've got a newborn in the house, so we've been socially distancing probably more than most, so overly protective, and so the barber has not seen me in a while.
it's interesting because I know some other folks that have babies and they've been out and about doing everything said. They said the baby's going to be fine. We're not going to worry. And so far, so good. So different
your fingers
approaches for
crossed, right?
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, braver than
crazy.
me, but
Yeah.
as long as their baby's good, my baby's good, then I'm
Then you're
for
happy,
everyone.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Well, we've it's been a while, and I guess the news is already out that the live event has been canceled, and I was fully prepared. I was going to go to Texas. I didn't care. The rest of my team, or wherever I think it was Texas, wherever that we were going to go. Myra said, "You really go?" And I'm like, "I'm on the first airplane." So, but I understand it was ended up being too much of a risk. So you guys are gone virtual. So I'm sure that was hard.
Yeah, I mean sitting there in March when this really became a big thing, because obviously we had the event in Los Angeles in February and then rolled right into preparations for the summer event, and that was March when all of this hit. And I just kept telling people like, oh, if this thing is still going on by August, like we'll have bigger fish to fry than whether the event's going to happen or not. And I
Right.
was just sure it was going to be good to go in August. And obviously, a couple months after I was making those proclamations, we decided to delay the event to October. And same thing, like, okay, it's definitely got to be under control by October, or else the world's going to be burned down and we won't have to worry about the event anyways. And then obviously, here we are. We found ourselves about more or less 90 days out that those October dates that we had delayed the event to, and just started becoming apparent that it was very unlikely that we would be able to hold the event in any semblance of what it's known for and what we want to do. And then, from a business perspective, even if things were to all of a sudden flip the switch and things were to be great by October, those months pre-sales and relationship building to then sell last minute tickets and all of that, really just we weren't going to be able to do any of that. So and in good conscience, we didn't feel good about pushing out big marketing campaigns about this event in October when so many things are going on. It seemed a little tone deaf, at least from our perspective. So all of those things just made it that we didn't feel comfortable pushing forward any further to do that event in October in person. And yeah, like you said, we're doing a virtual event. I guess the big delineation is we have not made the in-person event virtual. We've not transitioned to a virtual event. We have canceled the in-person event, and at that same, more or less during that same time period that in-person event was going to be, we are instead holding a virtual event. And that's important to me to lay out, because a lot of in-person events have just said, oh, okay, the event's virtual this year, your tickets are still good, exhibitors, your sponsorships are still good. And like, we're not naive enough or trying to play dumb enough to tell attendees who spent hundreds of dollars on tickets that, oh, the experience will be the same, or
Right.
telling exhibitors or sponsors that, oh, don't
Right.
worry, your title sponsorship, these thousands and thousands of people coming together for this in-person party, it's going to be the same with this virtual party. So for that reason, like, it was very important to us to kind of draw that line in the sand, say the event's canceled. We are going to do an event. It's going to be virtual, but we're not trying to just convince people that it's that the in-person event is transitioning. So, for that reason, we offered refunds to everyone. We offered rollover options to everyone, attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, all of that. So just from a peace of mind standpoint, it was very important to us to communicate whether or not people just assumed it was the in-person event going virtual. It was important to us to try to overly communicate that it's not that, because I think it's silly to try to do that.
I think you guys had the right approach to that. I've talked to a number of folks, and we've done a bunch of virtual stuff already. Probably one a week. Maybe not that much, but I've done a lot of virtual stuff. And you know how it is when you're at an event. We're there at the event. We're going from room to room. We're engaging. We're in the hallway talking with people. We're all that stuff. And if there's a session we don't want to see, maybe we go over the vendor area, or maybe we're completely booked through with different sessions. And it's just, you're 100% focused. There's no kids doing homework. There's no, somebody that needs dinner or whatever it may be. And you're there. And then you have the after evening things, as you're just 100% focused. And we've been going to these virtual events, and we see 30, 40 people hanging out in a session, and they drift in and drift out, and then you ask somebody a question and they're not even really there. They're just computers there. So I think that, that has been, for me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And the value is going to be those 40 or 50 people, which would have been the 40 or 50 people that would have been in the room otherwise. And, I'm happy with that, but it's the rest of the experience is not the same. But I think your guys' approach to do it over 2 weeks, I think you guys had, that's what I would have told you to do too, because people's attention span right now is really minimal.
Yeah, that was something we
yeah.
would. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, and being able to jump in and out of sessions, during a longer period of time, I think makes a lot of sense, and not having so much piled into one short period of time. I think it makes it possible for people to maybe fit it in their lives more. But Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, we've all at this point, like you said, Todd, maybe once a week gone to a zillion virtual events or summits, or even just like day-long webinars or half-day-long webinars, different forms that these things are taking. At this point, having been smart, we've all done different versions of those, and especially us, because we were testing a whole bunch of different platforms and wanting to see how people were doing things that worked and didn't work. And that's ultimately what we landed on, was how can we make this event as substantial, like a substantial event, so multiple days, multiple tracks, all of that, but also digestible enough for people to participate in. Because sure, like you said, when we're all in person in one place, we're all kind of head down, like we don't have those distractions, family, other obligations, and we can't recreate that. We can't take people out of their house to do a virtual event. So we stepped back and said, okay, we're not going to try to do the in-person event virtually. So we have freedom to kind of build it from the ground up, how we think it would be best, consumed by attendees and sponsors and exhibitors and speakers and all of that. So when we took that approach to it, we thought, okay, if we can spread this over 2 weeks, but still do the same 4 core conference days, just like we do the in-person event, but let's do it over 2 weeks and Tuesday and Thursday each week. To us, that made a lot of sense. Okay, people could maybe, instead of telling their family or their employers, hey, I'm taking 4 days off in a row from work, or don't bother me for 4 days while I'm going to this conference in a row, those 4 days are still there, but it's just 2 weeks, spread over 2 weeks instead of 4 days in a row. So that's why we chose that, Tuesday and Thursday one week, and then Tuesday and Thursday the next week are those core conference days. And within those days, the schedule might look somewhat similar to the in-person event in terms of having, keynote sessions, general sessions that everyone's there, but then breakout sessions throughout the rest of the day and some networking events. But those things all fall in those Tuesdays and Thursdays of those 2 weeks in a row. And our open exhibitor hall hours are going to be kind of mirror that same thing all over those 4 days, spread across the 2 weeks. So yeah, that's something that we thought long and hard about, but we landed on it. We haven't seen a whole lot of events do that exact thing. So we'll see if it works. We'll be the test dummies on that, but I think at least as far as we think it'll be good, and we're putting so much into the production. We've got production teams doing each one of these stages, so it's easier from that standpoint as well to kind of spread those responsibilities and those super intense hardcore days over those 2 weeks as well. So yeah, that's what the approach we're taking.
So which platform are you guys going to use?
So I want to say we probably like one-on-one demoed 25, 30.
Wow.
Like, not just like watch the video, but actually like sit with somebody and talk through them. And that was over the course of several months, obviously. And what we landed on was one named SwapCard. And if anyone wants to learn more about SwapCard, our event website, which is virtual.podcastmovement.com, has kind of videos and little previews and stuff. But the interesting thing about SwapCard is it's been around for a long time, but its original iteration was a networking, matchmaking, meeting scheduling type platform. So if you were an in-person event, you would incorporate SwapCard into your event, and that's how people, if they wanted to, look through the 3,000 or 4,000 attendees, try to pick the people that were the right matches for them, or if exhibitors wanted to schedule meetings with a certain type of attendee, it's pretty sophisticated AI that brings, helps with that matchmaking, that meeting making. So that's what SwapCard traditionally was that networking and matchmaking platform. And then when all of this hit, around SwapCard, they built the rest of the virtual event platform, which is, it's backwards from what a lot of the platforms we demoed were, which a lot of those platforms are like, oh, okay, we need to figure out a way to embed a Zoom call or do video sessions. And then the networking aspect, exhibitor aspect, all of those were secondary. And you could feel this, as you demo all these platforms, you can see, okay, now I can see what their first priority was, what their second priority is, and then what they didn't even worry about until the last. So with this SwapCard platform, since it was networking first, that whole networking experience and matchmaking experience and the bumpy ways or the seeking people out in the expo hall or whatever that looked like, that's going to be, a very, at least as far as virtual limitations allow, as smooth of a process and experience as possible. And then, of course, like all of the platforms, they've got the ability to have, sessions, video embed, so you never have to leave the platform, and chat, Q&A, and polls, and all of those things that a lot of them have. But just kind of that networking experience first is what really sold us on it. And it's definitely not the cheapest one we demoed. It's not the most expensive, but it's up there. But we really believe in it, and we believe the experience that it's going to provide the attendees. So we're investing in the platform, and super excited to get people on there and trying it out. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun time, we think.
So you still going to be using Zoom like everybody else is, or are you going to use a different kind of video platform? You're going to do your own thing?
Yeah, so a lot of these platforms, what we discovered is they were trying to kind of recreate Zoom within the platform. So you would basically go through what felt like a Zoom call, but you just logged into the event website instead of Zoom.
Right.
But then they were all buggy because they don't have the resources and the time and the development of Zoom. So what this platform does and is kind of been doing since they launched it was it incorporates the Zoom call. So the speakers will be on a Zoom call, but the attendees won't be on a Zoom call. They'll be within that event. And, so speakers will have a platform they're familiar with. And if they're familiar with screen sharing on Zoom, then they don't have to learn something new. But then the attendees don't feel like they're just on another Zoom call.
Right.
One of the cool things about this platform is it's got a picture-in-picture. So if you're on a session and you decide, I'm going to go look at the exhibitor page while I'm in this session, they don't have to, open a new tab and have it in the background. It kind of just like, I'm seeing on Skype right now. The session goes up in one window, and then the page goes, I can look at the page, And then if you could, in theory, set up do a quick video chat with another attendee. If you go to a exhibitor booth and you want to chat with whoever's working there, that one-on-one video call could pop up. In theory, have a session going in one corner of your screen, the video in another corner, and then be scrolling through the rest of the event in the middle. So it's pretty smooth and sophisticated as far as that goes. So we're hoping that those, we can't recreate the in-person event perfectly, but we're hoping we can kind of lean on this platform and say, if it has to be virtual, what are some of the cool things that you can do virtually that you couldn't do in person? And maybe that's it. Have a meeting while you're in a session.
So the big question, how's the response been by the podcast movement family going virtual?
Yeah, so I mean, there's multiple facets to that question. The first one is, how are the attendees who registered for Dallas? Our proposition was this: you registered for Dallas. Dallas is canceled. Give you your refund. Option A, no questions asked. If you want your money back, we'll give it to you because the event's not happening. But option B, which helped us, hopefully we can provide value in return, is to roll that registration over next year's event, next August in Nashville. That's where Podcast Movement 2021 is going to be. And if you do that, then we'll give you the $200 level of the virtual event for free. So that's, all the sessions, all the recordings, all of that of the 2-week virtual event. And we've had a very large chunk of those people who did that say, yeah, we'll take that. That's a good deal. And we would want to do the virtual event anyways. And hopefully we can go to the in-person next year. So the vast majority of people have taken us up on that. The people that haven't were a lot of the people who were only going to the event because it was in Dallas and they weren't really that interested in the event topics. It was just, hey, a conference in Dallas, I'll buy a ticket. So, but for the most part, we've had really good response there. So that's kind of the first piece of that. Second piece is sponsors and exhibitors and supporters financially. I mean, that's what makes the virtual event go around. And same thing, we've had very good support there. We offered similar things. We'll give you full credit for whatever your sponsorship package was this year. Roll it over to next year. We won't, put it up on the open market again. In exchange, there'll be some level of branding at that virtual event. So great support there, and both of those things we're so appreciative of. Then the third piece is obviously like new ticket sales, new interest based on it being virtual. And we've seen a really good response there too, just because now that people don't have to take time off work, don't have to travel. The ticket prices are a lot lower, obviously, because we don't have such a high hard cost. We don't have to charge as much for the tickets to pass those fees on. So all of those things combined, we've seen really good response, really good new registrations. The one thing we don't know at this point, we've gone 7 events, in 7 years in a row doing these in-person events, and we know what the registration trends look like. We know when tickets first go on sale, we see a big spike. Then we know every few months we have a price increase and we see a spike in price. And then we know inevitably a month from the event, we're going to see that biggest spike. People have finally, had the event on the calendar, and now they're finally just going to pull the trigger, register, make plans to go to the event. And then, ticket sales at the in-person event are pretty close to steady as we approach the event. So we at this point, every year, it's the same. We know what those trends look like for in-person registration. For the virtual event, we can make assumptions. We can say we think most people are going to wait till the last minute just because there's not really any pre-planning involved to, buy a $99 ticket to attend a live event. It could be an impulse decision, and you can enjoy the event just like you would had you registered 6 months out. So that's the big thing we don't know is what is that trend going to look like? What are those registration surges going to look like? We can make the assumption that every time there's a price increase, we'll see those spikes still. But we fully expect that instead of sales peaking a month before the event, they might peak a week or a day before the event. So, a lot of that's just kind of, we can talk anecdotally to other events, but, we'll wait and see. But we're expecting lots and lots of people, and we've got, some great speaking submissions coming through. So we think sessions are going to be really good as always. And yeah, just excited about how everything's trending.
So, Dan, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. I'm just kind of curious. Oh, did we lose Rob? Oh,
no, I'm still here.
okay.
I'm just showing a screenshot of the Gaylord where the
Rob's planning on 2021. He's already looking ahead.
Yeah.
So
no, it's an awesome hotel.
So
anyway, go
so
ahead, keep
what?
going.
So again, Rob, Dan, if you don't want to answer this, it's fine. So how I know that there were several events that canceled. They were on timelines because of contracts and so forth. Did you guys get hurt coming out of Dallas?
No, I'm happy to kind of talk big picture about it. It's we are lucky enough to have good relationships with the brands. All of these hotels are managed by brands. No matter what brand is on the hotel, there's 2 or 3. There's a Marriott, Hilton, and a few more that just kind of manage all of the hotels. So at this point, we've got good relationships with all of those top level hotel chains, and we were able to figure out a win-win. And it's not even a deal where we're like, okay, we guarantee we'll do the event at your venue or one of your venues in a future year, but it's just like, let's, in exchange for us keeping the conversation open, we'll kind of shake hands, part as friends. Because truthfully, the way we were looking at it is those hotels, like, they were willing to say, okay, we'll wipe out your food and beverage minimum, which is a big thing. I think we've talked about it before, that as event organizers, the 2 big things we're on the hook for to the venues is spending a certain amount on food and beverage and booking a certain number of hotel rooms. Because if either of those things we come short of whatever our contracted amounts are, we owe a big check.
Sure.
So that was kind of our big financial liability, was if we don't meet one of those 2 numbers, then we're going to write a big check. We didn't feel comfortable about meeting those numbers. So they were willing to wipe those numbers off the book, just say, hey, whatever happens, happens. But again, we weren't comfortable with whatever happened for the event. And ultimately, I think they knew that, like, because if we had an event, there's a certain level of staffing they would have to do and a certain level of things they would have to turn on, whatever those costs for them are. And if we brought nobody to the hotel, they'd be in a losing proposition as well. So, I think, and I don't know how other events are working things out, but I think as far as that goes, they were kind of willing to work with us, and we were lucky enough. It wasn't like an automatic process. Like, we had to push a little bit. Some of our legal friends had to get involved just to clarify some things in the contract. On the flip side, we didn't have like a pandemic insurance or anything like that. So
no one did.
We're not getting a big check on the back end either, but we're able to, not have to write a big check to get out of things. So I know we're not the only, or not everyone was as lucky as that, but we are, we're fortunate to have those relationships that allowed us to do that.
So can you even buy for next year? Can you even buy pandemic insurance now?
Oh, I'm sure you cannot. I know one event organizer who stumbled backwards into having pandemic. So story goes is that they had previous years had hurricane insurance because they were on one of the coasts, and their insurance provider desperately wanted to.
I heard about this.
Desperately wanted to keep their business high, because obviously premiums are higher for hurricane insurance and all of those things than just standard event insurance where those things aren't covered. And this person was still going to do, I think, hurricane or earthquake insurance or something like that. And then the insurance provider said, okay, this package you're buying comes with 2 different types of coverage. So, that hurricane insurance is one. What do you want the other one to be? And this person kind of closed their eyes and pointed and said, okay, we'll take pandemic. Like, that looked like the only other thing that could reasonably happen.
And I heard they had it for like 10 or 12 years. They paid on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not, it's not your standard thing. But they did that, and then they were very willing to cancel the event because they get a check from insurance as if the event happened when it didn't.
Yeah. And I heard it was Lloyd's or someone. It was some ridiculous number, like $12 million or something. They would have got back. But I heard that same.
But I've also heard of other events that had a similar thing. They had, or they thought they had, pandemic
and
insurance,
they didn't.
And they either didn't, or the venues weren't as amicable with them as they were with us. And if the venue was saying, "Oh no, come still have your event," then the insurance carrier's like, "Oh, they'll let you have the event, like not our fault." So yeah, those people that were maybe like sleeping easy because they thought they had pandemic insurance didn't. So it's not dissimilar from other insurance things.
You look at CES getting canceled, and they rent the entire Las Vegas Convention Center. They rent the Sands. It's massive. So I don't know what the CEA hit was, or if they're so big, they just say, we're coming back next year. You better take care of me, or else. That's where a bevy of lawyers get involved. But anyway, I'm glad you guys didn't get hurt. I know that, you're hurt that you can't have the event, but, there's always some financial impact, but, at least you guys are still in business. And that's, that's, in my opinion, a good thing that we didn't, I was thinking, initially, are we going to have to do, some more fundraisers? Are we going to have to go out and do, something to help some of these events if they get hurt? And I don't know if that's going to be the case. No one's talked about it, and I'm glad you did, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's obviously the biggest fear is what if we do have to cut this big check?
Right.
For us, it would have been over $500,000, just
Right.
straight check with nothing in return. Just, Mr. and Mrs. Hilton, here you go.
Oh, my God.
And that's something that is like, obviously pretty like, okay, what do we do? Do we sell the company so that someone else can run it? And, or I guess it would be give away the company in exchange
Right.
for not having to, absorb that.
Yeah.
Or do we, try to figure out, bankruptcy thing and how does, so like those are conversations that we were lucky not to have. But
Can't
again,
imagine.
not everyone has escaped that without doing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's so. Here's the question to you. Okay, you've been doing this for 7 years. Do you think this is fundamentally going to change events forever?
I mean, forever is a long time, but I certainly think it's fundamentally going to change things short term. And there's probably certain things that will fundamentally change. Like I think there will be people that for the rest of our lifetime are going to want to wear masks at an event, even when things are better. I think there's some people that maybe wanted to anyways. I mean, we see other countries where anytime
Right.
there's large gatherings, people wear masks. So I think there's some level of that where people are just going to feel safer doing that. But on the flip side, that kind of thing will become the norm, I think, like just like in those other countries. Oh, sure, that person wears a mask, but it's not that big of a deal because, they feel good and we feel good. But I mean, I don't know. The hard thing is because we were so in the weeds of the planning of the event, if it were to go on, like with what those measures would be.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. The seating would have had to been like every 6th seat or something like that. So, a room that normally sat 600 would sit 100 or less because there's all different like vertical distancing and horizontal distancing. So, when we started doing some of that math, that started thinking that this wasn't going to be, a viable thing to do anyways. So, I don't know if in 2021, if we're going to have to sit every other seat or something like that, like, hope not. Like, I'd love for things to go back to normal, but maybe there's less buffets at events. Maybe there's less buffets overall in general. So, when you start looking at some of those type extensions of changing the event, like there'll be some things, but yeah, I don't think it's just going to be, crazy 50% capacity in rooms forever going forward.
35 years ago when I was in Japan a lot and on the trains, you saw people with masks all the time. And the thought then, 35 years ago, is, well, they're polite. They're not feeling well. They've got a mask on. They're being polite. And so it's really strange how it's become so decisive. But anyway, it's because people just really haven't had too much exposure outside the United States and don't understand how masks are pretty prevalent, especially in Asia. And they're really prevalent in Asia, depending on where you go. So, Rob, I know you got some questions. Go ahead. I'm hogging the mic here.
I just wanted to kind of dive into an area around, it a little bit dovetails off of what Todd just asked you about is, are the changes that we're seeing here going to be a little bit more permanent from the standpoint of that there's always going to be a certain amount of people that are just going to not come to events just because of the risk, and they're going to expect be able to get access to a virtual event that's part of it. And I'm starting to wonder, I'm hearing from people at other virtual events that are, as those events are getting a little better, that people are saying, well, there's some aspects of these virtual events that are better than the real world events. I just wonder, Dan, if you guys are thinking about, as you roll out this event in 2021, is there going to be a stronger component on the virtual side because you've invested in this stuff, you're much more knowledgeable about it, and maybe that expands the reach of the brand podcast movement beyond just the borders of a physical location, that you guys can grow that show to be a much larger event than just expecting people to fly into Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked about how the event industry is going to change, I certainly think from the event production and hosting standpoint, that's what you just said is 100% going to happen. So we already, as we were searching for platforms for this event,
right,
we're thinking like, how is this going to translate? Like, can we use this same platform for, we all call it the hybrid model approach, which is partially virtual, partially in person. Is this platform that we're choosing going to be something that we can use in that way going forward. Because last year we streamed one stage from Podcast Boom, and that was our first year to stream anything, mainly because just the cost the hotels charge us to, get dedicated bandwidth lines. It's not worth, an extra $30,000 for one hardwired line to stream. But I think it's going to be a give and take going forward. I think a lot of times the venues now are going to see that as something, that's not necessarily a revenue center for them, but those venues are going to say, oh, like all events are hybrid now, so we have to provide, better bandwidth for these event organizers to do these hybrid events. And yeah, absolutely, that's something we're thinking about. Is maybe Todd's pumping his fist in the audio audience.
Todd's excited.
Maybe that's something that rolls down to the exhibitors and everything else. But yeah, I think for sure what your question is, will this affect the ability to consume events going forward from a distance? And absolutely. I mean, I think this has forced us to now learn how to do events virtually, and this knowledge and this research and these teams we're building to do this virtual production. I see no reason why it would be, we wouldn't keep it in place and keep those learnings, and then try to have a more accessible event for anyone all over the world. That's what we've kind of tasked the team with is, okay, let's not look at this situation of being, remote, have our whole business kind of turned upside down. Let's not look at it as a negative and just kind of twiddle our thumbs until we can do the event again. But let's see, not only what can we put in place short term that's going to bridge the gap from both the business perspective, but also community building perspective. Not only what can we put in place to do that, but also out of those things put in place, like what can we do long term with those? And I think absolutely learning how to do virtual events that will then translate to making those in-person events hybrid is something that will hopefully pay dividends in the long run.
One thing that you just hit the nail on the head. I was talking with a buddy of mine out in Phoenix, and his business, he transitioned a couple of years ago to where, as an example, they would be at an event. There would be, let's say, three session rooms. They'd have 3 cameras in there, and they had a little transcoder box, and they pumped that video back to Phoenix, no matter where that event was at. And then the team in Phoenix actually did the live production for the online audience and did the switching and all the graphics. And so they didn't have to be at the convention center, but the people who were at the convention center were. But still, he was telling me, he's just like, the bill to put in like 10 dedicated lines to get 720p, which is about 3 megs up, to get that was like $100,000. And he said, we can do this, but the venues are being so, that's just a revenue center for them. And, I think about my time at CES when we were doing CES and doing our live, the first couple of years I had to pay for the bandwidth. And finally, when I proved myself with CEA, they said, okay, we'll take care of the bandwidth for you. And that relieved like $15,000 on my overhead to be able to have a single stupid line that was less equivalent of what I have here in this office that I pay $99 a month for. And it was just, and it hardly ever worked because the infrastructure, and then, long story short, finally, after many, many years of complaining and screaming and, complaining to the CEA, they finally fixed it at LVCC. And now I have a dedicated 15 meg up line. I get enough IPs. We've learned all those lessons, but it took us years. So I think what you're going to run into, and this is because we basically worked, all us live folks worked so hard with the CEA and said, listen, I'm dropping off. I'm pushing 3 megs. I'm supposed to have 15 and it's not working. And finally they made it a priority and fixed it. So for like the last 3 to 5 years, things have been pretty much fixed at LVCC as far as bandwidth goes, because they finally got it. I'm going to have 50,000 people watching the live stream. The value that the CEA is going to getting to make sure my bandwidth works was huge. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you guys are talking to Nashville, and if you're going to be doing this, I mean, you need to be like, you will guarantee me this, or you will pay me. I'd be hardcore with them because it never works. They never fully realize the bandwidth requirements that you're going to need.
Yeah, we've definitely pushed 6-figure bills for bandwidth before, and it's funny because we tell people that and they're like, the Wi-Fi sucked at your event. It's like, well, these venues have their built-in infrastructure. Some of it's great, some of it's not, but
Yep.
you have no choice. I mean, there are external companies
Yep.
that'll come out and put a tower on top of a convention center or hotel sometimes, if they'll allow it. If the hotels will allow it, often they won't. Yeah, but you're still paying for that too. So yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, and this is one of the things, like Rob had pulled up the website earlier of the Nashville venue. It's one of the things going with some of these newer venues in Nashville. We're at the Gaylord Opryland right there. A lot of the newer venues, they were built kind of in the modern age, so nothing had to be retrofitted. They were built for
Right.
higher speed dedicated lines, more outputs or inputs or whatever you want to call them around the room, so you're not running. That's the other issue. Is a lot of these old hotels, they're running lines from a closet.
800 feet.
Yeah, a closet that 2 levels above or something, and they're dropping them through the ceilings and running them down hallways. So yeah,
There was
interesting.
There was an event I attended at the Wynn in Vegas where they had a hospitality room set up for media types like me, and they put in 100. Let me get this right. 100 gig up and down, guaranteed 100 gig. It cost that event coordinator $250,000 to have that line run in just for 4 days to get 100 megs. Now, some of you in the homes had, and this was just less than 10 years ago. So they made money on that, but that's how much it cost to run that bandwidth to the suite. And they had to run a wire up the side of the Wynn, right up the side of the building.
Not a short hotel either.
No, not a short hotel. And we're in a suite. So, so I think these venues, and maybe what you're going to find is that you're going to have to offload 4 or 5 of these streams into some other production house, but then you're going to incur costs there. That's not going to be cheap either. So, I see a few TriCasters in your life coming up, Dan. So,
Yeah, there you go. Hey Todd, I've got up on the screen a really cool photograph of the Gaylord Hotel. I've actually been to this hotel before, and it's a beautiful venue. Dan, this is going to be probably the best venue this event has ever been to.
Yeah, definitely the best venue. I think anyone that's been to a Gaylord kind of knows that they're first class hotels, often expensive. One of the things when we're venue searching, we talk about this every year, and every year it gets a little more difficult. But one is very few hotels are big enough to hold our group sizes now. Either they don't have enough meeting space for all our different breakouts, or they don't have enough sleeping rooms for our attendees to stay at. So a lot of hotels are just off our potential venue list. We still don't really want to do the convention center thing, so that's kind of off the list. But then a lot of these hotels, like a lot of the Gaylords, they cost $350, $400 a night, and for our attendees, that's not what we're going for. We're trying to keep it right around that $200 a night level. It's not going to be a Motel 6, but it's also not going to be the Wynn or something like that. Trying to find that middle point. So we've looked at Gaylords before and all of that. This is the first time we've actually been able to get a contract for room night costs that's reasonable, right around that $200 a night level. Super excited about that. And yeah, it's a great venue, Rob. You said you've been there already, but the Gaylords are first class. The meeting space is cool. That picture you showed, it's everything's glass ceilings, atrium, feels like you're outside. We're super excited about that. And we didn't even get a good deal from there because we signed it during the pandemic. This is something we've signed the contract on a couple years ago. So just lucky enough to get a really good contract, good internet. Hopefully you can appreciate, Todd. We're starting to write those into the contracts instead of just taking what we get when we show up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be fun.
So Tom Webster says, one thing I'm planning for at least 2 of the days of PM, I'm checking into a hotel and booking myself as out of the office those days. Being fully present has been a real issue for me, at least at these virtual events, and I want to be in attendance for PM mentally as much as I can. I think that's a hell of a good idea. I really do. And, thanks, Tom, for saying that, because, maybe this will answer another question too, because Doug says, how would you do a virtual vendor booth? So I think what I'm going to do is my team is whoever's going to man the virtual vendor booth, we'll get them a hotel room so they can be focused. No mom, no dad, no kids so that they can be focused as someone comes to the virtual vendor booth. So how does the virtual vendor booth stuff going to work at this virtual event?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Again, as we look through platforms, we wanted to take into account not what the experience was only going to be like for attendees or only for speakers or only for exhibitors, but try to find something that was pretty all encompassing. And this exhibitor booth is the same way. So it's got the ability to, when an attendee shows up to a booth, you can kind of see who the staff member is that's working that booth, text chat them, you can hop on a video chat with them if you want. The other cool thing about this platform is it allows exhibitors to set up demos. They can either be live demos that are Zoom calls for the exhibitor, but then the attendees can join in and chat and kind of consume the demo as if you were able to set up a demo at your booth in an in-person event. Have a sign that said, "Hey, on Tuesday at 2 p.m. we're doing a demo of this new feature."
Oh.
So people will be able to go to those exhibitor pages and see, oh, here's all the different demos that this exhibitor has scheduled. They can add it to their schedule and they show up. From their standpoint, it's like they're showing up for another session, but it's all right there on the exhibitor page, and they can schedule those. They can be, like I said, Zoom call demos where they're live, or the exhibitor can submit a video demo, and it will still air or go live at that scheduled time, so that they could be in the chat room answering questions if they wanted to, but it's just a pre-recorded video playing.
Right.
So super flexible from that standpoint. That was something we definitely wanted, was the exhibitors, the ability to schedule quote unquote demo sessions that were on their schedule. That's one thing. The other thing is that this has this platform very much has like a like team management backend, where you have your staff members, and then you have, like I said, a really sophisticated meeting scheduling or call scheduling program where it almost like an Acuity scheduling, or some of those websites where people can see all your availability and find mutual time. It's got that built into it, and then whoever's booth manager or the exhibitor manager can assign those times to different members of their team. So they
That's
can say,
cool.
oh, this is a new podcaster, so we're going to assign that to our new podcaster person, or this is a corporation, so we're going to assign this to that person. So pretty good kind of exhibitor management there. One thing it's not is like little avatars that stand at little cartoon avatars that stand at the booth. We demoed those, and those are a little silly, kind of funny looking, but all the design and development go into crafting these little characters, and not so much into the actual experience of both sides. So it's not that. The other thing it's not, some people might like this, but we heard one exhibitor who was doing a virtual event, and every single exhibitor had a green screen, and they would literally stand at the camera at their booth, just in front of the green screen, waiting for people to come to their booth, like all day. Like that was what they did. So they were trying to recreate the real virtual
Right.
or the real exhibitor booth. But I don't know. To me, it's like standing in front of a green screen looking
Right.
at your computer, like for all day. If nobody shows up, or people show up every few minutes, it seemed strange. Like I said, some people might like that. And if you're like, you've got physical products that you want to hold up and show people in real time, might be good. But yeah, so anyways, some of the stuff is restricted to what the platform allows. But yeah, that's the overall thing, is a lot of it focused on the ability to have multiple team members interacting, or scheduling meetings with people. And we think it's a good kind of a good balance for attendee and exhibitor engagement.
I played around with Second Life after I hadn't been there in about 10 years, and built a little like presentation place and did everything just as a little experiment. And then I got to thinking about it. I said, this is cool, but the up ramp to get someone in, get them set up, get them into the virtual center is probably too much. It can't be this difficult. It had been cool to be able to do it, and we'd done it in the past many years before. And after about a week of thinking how it would work in there, I said, forget it. And I let my rent expire, and all my stuff disappeared into the digital ether. But it's, that virtual avatar stuff, unless you have this whole community that's already there, it don't make any sense.
Yeah. But yeah, and then to Tom's idea about taking the time off, block the time off on the calendar, like that, if people can do it, that was one of the reasons why we spread the event over 2 weeks, and Tuesday and Thursday, is we thought it might be easier for people to block off a couple days 2 weeks in a row versus than a giant block of time during 1 week. So hopefully that allows people, maybe it's maybe they just pick 2 days once they see the schedule to block off, or maybe they had the ability to block off all 4 of the conference days. But yeah, we hope that that's something that helps, not hurt.
I was telling Rob before the meeting or for our show started today. I just said, "Hey, dude, I'm crushed. I feel like I've had a thumb on me since March, and I said I need a damn vacation." So there's no place to go but stay home, or go check yourself in a hotel room and go swim in the pool or something. And it's just
Good rates right now.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. But I worry about my team. They're all home. They're not going to get in this social interaction. It's just I'm afraid about burnout and everything else. It's tough. I think we're doing fine. Everyone's working. But Zoom.
Well, and also,
If
Todd,
I
like
could
what
have a
you-
week off from Zoom, my God, it'd be great.
I mean, like you were saying earlier, Todd, too. There's not as many flights as there used to be either. So that's going to be another challenge. It depends on how far or how quickly the airlines come back too. So that might have a restriction on how many people can fly into Nashville and go to this. I have a big question mark of how many people will actually go to an in-person event. I mean, even in the possibility of the summer, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not people's willingness to go to a real world, in-person event, it is going to ramp up slowly, or if people are just going to jump on the bandwagon. Dan, do you have any indication on if you think that your attendance might be, significantly reduced because people have gotten in the habit of not doing this?
I mean, we're 12 months away, so I have no idea if it'll be reduced because this thing's still going on in some way, shape, or form, or if it's going to be spiked because everyone's so
Is
hungry,
pent up and wanting to
out.
get out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, at some point this is going to have some semblance of passing, and some event organizer is going to be rewarded because people are going to then finally break free, and that's going to be the event people converge on. So I don't know. NAB, is it podcast movement? Is it podcast movement 2023? Like there's so many unknowns, obvious. My one kind of anecdotal thought is I remember not a few years ago when we first started podcast movement 2014, when we were looking at venues, so many of the venues had like these virtual meeting rooms. Like they had converted these in-person ballrooms to a bunch of little virtual meeting rooms, and they were like, oh, people don't want to travel anymore. They just want to meet virtually with each other. So we've put all these rooms with cameras and all of this in there. And then we weren't even like, there were so many hotels. Like if you guys remember, we booked that venue only a few months before the event. And now, not now, but before the pandemic hit, booking a hotel a few months before an event was like, there was not a chance. Like the events industry was booming so much. And they had since then, over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, ripped out all of those digital meeting rooms, those virtual meeting rooms, because people were doing everything throughout the year virtually, that when event time came, they wanted to actually be in the same room with those people. So, I see that, and it's obviously not exactly, but it's similar to me of like people at that point were tired of everything being virtual and wanted to have those opportunities to get together. And,
Right.
I think at some point we'll reach that same feeling here. I just don't know when that'll be.
Well, if sign me, I'll be in line for the vaccine immediately. You get yours, and then we're gonna hug. Okay, so we're all gonna hug. We're gonna have a mass hug, But no, I think
Right.
it's, and here's what's we
Hey,
don't
Todd,
have
I
to.
want to shake your hand here.
Here's what we really know is we can already see it. People are already. They're looking for that social interaction. That's why when they've opened states up and
Right.
opened bars up, that's why there's 300 people in the bar, because they've all been locked down in their house. They don't care. They've had enough, So, we can talk about that for an hour, but I think in person, I think as soon as they figure this out and I can go get I know there's anti-vaxxers out there. You guys, do what you're going to do. But, I was in the Navy for 25 years. I had no choice. I got every shot known to man, including anthrax. So I can handle another vaccine. I'm getting a vaccine, and I'm going to be. It's I'm a social
Yeah, I'm going to get one too. There's no
immediately.
question.
As
Yeah.
soon as I can get one, and after the first responders, and wait my time into the line. But yeah, we're going to be back together. It's going to be bigger than ever. It
I
will
think
be
so.
bigger
I mean,
than ever.
Like you said, we're all thirsty for it.
Oh,
We all just like are
dying.
Well, and it might be an opportunity too here, Dan, if you can scale this virtual event to be much bigger and a larger group of people come into the virtual event than go to the real world event, maybe that'll be almost like a marketing test for people engaging in the community, and will be more likely to come out to a real world event in the long run. Who knows? Maybe the next time you have a real world event, your attendance will double or something. I mean, who knows,
Yeah,
right?
And there's going to be a segment that's not going to want to come out. So,
Right.
They won't.
Yep.
So,
there's no telling. So many unknowns with a whole lot of things going on. That's certainly one of them. But like you said, Rob, kind of building that foundation for the virtual event, and whether it's a recurring virtual event or whether it is lessons learned and tools put in place for future hybrid event for forever. Something's going to come of it. Good. We'll make sure of that.
Since you are going to be doing the world's largest virtual podcasting event. Yeah. Dan's not laughing.
No, I mean, we've for the past 4 or 5 years, been able to say that the in-person event was the largest conference. So, we have no reason to think that when we do it virtually, that won't be the similar result.
Right.
Are you gonna call Guinness?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Guinness records. I think when I go to the dentist, the book's on the table, the Guinness World Record book, and I have fun flipping through the Guinness record books. I think if there's something in there, I think Adam Carolla's in there at one point for the most downloaded podcast. I think
he's definitely not that. He's definitely not the king anymore.
Not the king anymore, but the more podcast content Guinness record book at the dentist's office, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
I think we're joking aside. I hope they do well with that, but it's. Yeah, I don't know. I was talking with a gal recently, and from a sponsorship standpoint, it's tough because you're still going to you're using this virtual package. It doesn't sound like it's inexpensive. It sounds like and I'm not going to ask you to say how much it was, but I'm sure it's 5 figures or more. Yep. And so you got fixed costs to do that. But then I look at it from a perspective of, and we've talked about this many, many times. Yeah, we can be there and we can wave the flag and everything, but at some point I have to justify back to how many, what did we accomplish from that? How much did we make any money? Did we sign up any new people? And, those are metrics I have to answer to my board of directors for. So, we've been hard, there's a couple of events that we wanted to support, and they were asking as much for sponsorship at their virtual event as they were for their live event. And I said, I just can't justify it. And it's, you guys are in a good position because you've got great numbers already, but someone that's doing a small event and there's 200-300 people maybe show up, I can't write a $5,000 check for 300 people. I can write a $5,000 check for 3,000 people, or whatever that number is, or 2,000 but I can't do it for 300. So, and I understand that there's cost with all this stuff. So it's not, I don't envy, the position you're in at this point, because it's harder.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like you said, there are fixed costs, but they're not as high as the in-person events.
Right. Right.
We have a production staff, and
that costs money and everything.
That costs money, but we don't have to pay their hotels and their travel and all that. So, there's trade-offs, and, so from our perspective, we want to make sure that we, make enough with it to keep the lights on and
Sure.
keep the team fed, and, support the team members, and hopefully provide some value to the same community, and maybe hopefully reach even more people than we would at the in-person event.
Right.
So sure, there's, revenue goals and profit goals, but, it's also, there's other value. Like Rob said, maybe we'll bring a whole bunch of new people into the fold
Sure.
that Next year we'll come to the in-person. So yeah, lots of different moving pieces and not just any one metric that's our, primary focus. But I think, we joke about the biggest conference, the numbers and all of that. With the virtual event, at least as far as, our design goes, the more people involved, the better. So,
Right.
prices are lower, but we're hoping that balances out more people being able to come. Prices are lower for the virtual booths than, significantly lower than our in-person booth, like, because we agree with you,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing. So we're hoping we can get more people involved there. So, I mean, it's definitely a numbers game, and we think the more people involved, the more value everyone will get. There's
Yeah.
more people sitting in the sessions for the speakers, the more valuable,
Yep.
their time's going to be. So, yeah, I mean, again, we joke about the numbers and stuff, quantities, but that's important for the virtual event model.
So as you are working with these technology platforms, providing this virtual experience, are you getting previews into what these platforms are doing to improve the experience and to improve the interaction? I mean, are we going to see these virtual platforms be 100% better than they are right now, just in a year? Are they like rapidly, improving? And do you think, I mean, after looking at so many of these platforms, where do you think we are in the development of the technology side of being able to create these virtual experience and have people actually want to show up and attend and participate and get something more out of it? Because I am hearing people talk about virtual events, and I think I mentioned this earlier, that actually are starting to enjoy them better. And so I think that there's an interesting kind of mix. There's some people that maybe don't feel comfortable going to a real world event, but they will a virtual event. So I'm just wondering, what's your thought, Dan, about what you've seen in the development of the technology platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all going to get better because a lot of them didn't exist 6 months ago. So a lot of them, you can tell as soon as you hop in, they'll demo you a bunch of features, but then when you go to actually like get pricing, they list off all those features they just showed you aren't actually available yet. Those are on the, the beta test,
to-do
or the
list,
demo
yeah.
unit, or whatever you want to call it. The other
Yeah.
interesting thing we're seeing is, like, in March and April, when we started, recognizing that we would have to do some level of hybrid virtual approach to our in-person event, we got certain quotes. And then in, July, when we go back to them and try to take them up on some of those offers, the prices have all tripled and quadrupled. So I think there's an evolution in the features, the technology, and they're also evolving their pricing structures and charging more. I feel like a lot of those prices will pull back once they realize they're not the only show in town, and then once people start going to in-person events again, those virtual, like we talked about with the internet at the venues, like, they'll come back down to earth. I think a lot of these platforms, their pricing will come back down to earth as well. But yeah, the evolution of those platforms is happening. There's only so much you can do with a virtual event, so there's certain things that, that I think development will at some point kind of hit a wall, be as awesome as it can be. And maybe the speeds are faster, or maybe the graphics are better, or the transitions are smoother. Like, those things I think will continue to evolve, but there's only so many things I think you can do in a virtual environment. And then talking about the value, and some people seeing extra value in the virtual event that maybe they don't see in the in-person event. I certainly think that's the case in terms of kind of cost benefit analysis. Like, if you're paying $99 and that's it for a 4-week event, like what our ticket is, compared to, a couple $100 for the ticket, plus a couple $100 a night for the hotel room, plus, hundreds, if not $1,000 for travel.
Right.
Some people are going to say, okay, it's not the same experience, but versus, the time away and the investment and all of that, maybe that is better. So, some people, or maybe it's a lifestyle thing. Maybe people do appreciate being able to, do the conference on the couch while they're holding their baby or something like that. Like, there's things that you couldn't do at the in-person event. Maybe you still feel like you're still getting that same value from the sessions or from the education. So I think that interesting that some people are able to get more value out of the virtual event. The other thing we looked at when we decided to build this virtual event from the ground up is, what are these experiences that maybe are difficult to come by at the in-person event that we make better at the virtual event. And one example I give is, if you're going to a 3,000 or 4,000 person in-person podcast movement conference, you might be able to schedule meetings ahead of time with people you already know. You might bump shoulders or cross paths in the hallway with somebody whose name you recognize, and you're putting a face to the name. But one of the things that's difficult is to identify out of that sea of thousands of people who the good leads are if you're an exhibitor, or who the good connections are if you're an attendee trying to do a certain thing. Like, it's so overwhelming. There's all these people. How do you hunt down the right person to have a conversation with, or to talk to, or to schedule a meeting with? So that's why on this platform that we picked, it's super sophisticated with the matchmaking and using people's profile data and exhibitors' profile data to match up the right people to meet with each other and connect with each other when otherwise they wouldn't be able to, or wouldn't have that opportunity at the in-person event. So we think things like that we'll be able to capitalize on. And then again, as we talk about hybrid events, hybrid approaches, maybe that software, maybe this technology we're using to do this virtually is something that can be layered in to the in-person event, so people are together, but also have that, we have that tool in place now to match people up ahead of time. So we're not just relying on chance encounters at networking events. People are actually able to, connect to the right people ahead of time and actually meet in person. So yeah, all of those things are kind of swimming around and things we hope to make the most of as we do it virtually.
So here's something to think of, and it's something actually I got roped into a couple weeks ago. I got a green screen here in the studio. Got all this great tech. I don't use half of it half the time. And I had a person come and say, hey, I'm presenting at an event. Can I come in and can you green screen me? Can you put this behind me? Can you switch out the slides? Can you put in these fly-ins? And so I'm like, ding. Yeah, there's a little business here. I'm like, yeah, and he's just doing an hour presentation. Got it all set up. He came in, we keyed him in, got him all set. I told him where he could walk in the room. The room's not that big. And when he did his presentation, it looked like he was on a keynote stage, and the audience was like, wow. They were captivated more about this virtual. It didn't look virtual. It looked like he was on a keynote stage doing a keynote, and all he was doing was making a presentation, but we actually made him look really, 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 really good. So for me, I'm kind of like, man, when I start doing some more events, I'm going to start doing that same methodology, because I think from a presenter standpoint, we got to up our game here, So Rob and I both have pretty decent backgrounds to our rooms, and you're in your space right now. But I think as presenters, when they're starting to do presentations at these virtual events, because we are virtual, we need to start upping our games as presenters to make ourselves look better. So that's something that I'm really going to focus on. And I know, Rob, you invested in equipment, some different stuff to make yourself look better as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be as a big of a importance for these virtual events as anything else, because when we're at an event, we got a big screen, we got the clicker, we're able to pace a little bit, cue in on the audience. You're not going to have that. So you're going to have to really, if you really want to have an effective presentation and keep people's attention.
Right. It's got to be visually enticing.
It has to be visually enticing to keep, because maybe I get boring and they say, well, look at what's those eyeballs below the Red Bull sign? What I've had more people ask about what that is. Well, what that is just, I'm triggering you to, like, you're listening, but you're also saying, what are those eyes below the Red Bull sign? So I think we as presenters have to up our game as well. And there's probably going to be a whole industry. We're all stuck in our houses because you can't buy a webcam. All this stuff has been sold out for months. So I think there's going to be a whole industry in doing virtual presentations and looking good, sounding good. You have stuff up there that, you have to be able to give your best. Because what if you're in a Zoom meeting or whatever platform you're using, you have to look better than the platform you're on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole cottage industry popping up. If anyone wants to see something amazing, go look at Tony Robbins. He did his first virtual event several weeks ago, and rumors are that he spent 7 figures on building out this studio to be a virtual studio. But it is cool. It's 360-degree environment, and obviously he brought in camera people that were had those, I don't know what you call them, but those cameras that they follow him around with, and he had these giant wraparound screens like you would see at the IMAX movie theater or something, and they had like tens of thousands of little bitty faces all over from it, like a bunch of little Zoom calls, gallery view or whatever you call it. And he had people like dancing, and they would bring them on the screen and stuff. typical Tony Robbins kind
Right.
of high energy event, they were able to recreate virtually. And when you have that much money, I think they had 20,000 people that all spent 4 to 5 figures to be there. It's easy to invest $1 million
Right,
in
right.
in the production standpoint. So I certainly think that there's people and a bunch of what we would call influencers, I guess, who have those high ticket events and they're able to rent out studios and maybe fly in their speakers to do some things. So yeah, there's some really cool things that people are doing for the right events
Yep.
and the right audiences.
But for
But yeah,
the,
Also-
I mean, these are things that we're having to consider all the way down to, we're going to have over 100 sessions and we're going to do tech check with each and every one of them. And we're going to not necessarily walk through the presentations, but, get our eyes on what their camera setup looks
Yep,
like,
yep.
what their microphone sounds like. And if they're planning on running polls, like, let's make sure that's incorporated and what they're, if they need to share their screen, like, make sure they know what they're doing. So, there's, I wouldn't necessarily call that a cottage industry, but our producers, our production teams who normally would be running the soundboard in the breakout room are now running a Zoom call and running tech check for
Yep.
that and stuff. So, not necessarily, again, like a cottage industry, but there's roles for these people. It's just different.
and I think it's just, I think even if you're listening to this and you're an average podcaster that's, doing this out of your house and you're an indie and you don't want to spend too much money, a lot of these software packages now are really being able to do a green screen key almost on anything. And it's really remarkable. You don't need a green screen anymore. But if you really want to just kind of bump it a little bit, just buy a simple green screen.
It's not that expensive.
No, they're
I mean,
not. Under
Well, they
100
make
it's
the
bucks.
ones
like
that mount on the back
less
of
than
your
100
chair.
bucks.
Yeah, yeah.
They make the ones mount on the back of your chair, so you turn
Right.
with it, like the green screen stays with you, so you don't even have to paint a wall or hang something up.
Yeah, and another thing too is you got to make sure it fits within the camera view. There's a few things you have to do, but at the same time, you can really make yourself look great, and you can put yourself virtually in Hawaii or wherever you want to be on the beach, or there's all kinds of options there. And I
Dan,
think,
are you going to be with your keynotes? Or are you going to be asking your keynote presenters to have a keyed virtual background, that kind of thing, at all?
I think virtual backgrounds, when done right, are great, but
Yeah.
a lot of people do them wrong.
Wrong.
I don't know if
Right.
any of us have been on like Zoom calls where somebody's just messing around with the this
Yep.
space or something in the background, or being in the jungle. So
Yeah, that's not
if
good.
it's
I
something that
agree.
we feel comfortable, like confident that we can do right, then maybe. But I'd rather see someone's catwalk background than to see a really bad virtual background that fades in and out, like kind of like
or you've got green bleed on the head or in the clothes, and yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it can be.
We'll
It can
see, and
be.
it might be a case by case basis.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit technically complicated. I know. I tried to up my game too. I mean, Todd knows what I've been going through. I brought in studio lights and I have a big green screen and stuff. I've been playing around with this stuff too, trying to up my game. I got a high end camcorder that I'm using. So it's just a matter of realizing where things are going. And if I'm going to be doing any kind of keynote as I look to the future, I want to be able to have that same kind of a professional look that I had up on stage at Podcast Movement, right? I mean, because you guys had amazing backgrounds, stage presentation, all that kind of stuff, and I think your event should expect that. So that's kind of why I asked the question.
I think it's but we you talk about upping your game and stuff, and I think as virtual events continue for the time being, that's a good pitch as a speaker to say, not only here's my topic, here's my speaking
Right.
experience, but also here's my virtual conference speaking reel. Like, not just here's what it looks like when I speak on stage at the event, but have a look at what my background looks like and what my audio sounds like and what my video sounds like and what my lighting is. Like, all of those things, like, are super important now. Whereas before, we don't care what people's home office setup looks like. They're great on stage, but now, they need to have those skills that they are great on stage with, but then also be able to present it in a great way virtually.
So, and if you think about it, you just look at this room here. So we can see Rob's new media show in the background. You can
Right.
see my GoDaddy thing right here. If I wanted to, I could put up a screen here that would say Blueberry. So I think what you're also going to have to do, Dan, is like, hey, in your backgrounds, no pitching.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, good
because I could drop an ad right back here for the whole presentation, right?
Yep.
And I'm not speaking about it, but
Right.
I'm running an ad. So what
Or
am
you
I
could
doing
put,
right
like,
now?
your own lower third on or something
Right.
like that.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm running a lower third. I can turn that and turn that off. So, so this is, because I've seen some stuff on some virtual events. I'm like, oh, that was smart. He's got a promo code on his monitor that he shows. He's got, buy this and here's the promo code. And I'm like, okay, that was slick. Now let me remember that if I ever do have virtual speakers, tell them, okay, no promotion within your screen area too.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
And because we
Yeah, Todd, I had
all have agendas.
Yeah, Todd, I had a Coca-Cola sign behind me here in the past. I've removed it because I didn't want to promote Coca-Cola. So that's I mean, that's kind of like your GoDaddy thing.
That's
somewhat,
right. You need, and Rob, you need the Libsyn logo up
Right,
there, right?
exactly.
I need a blueberry one here. So it's.
I was just thinking about that, Todd. I need to add that.
Go ahead. I'll go tit to tat. Remember, I control your view. I can scrunch you down.
You can turn on the blur background function.
That's right. I've got the control here. Believe me, I can make Rob go gray if I want to. So.
Wow, Todd.
But no, but that's something we have to think about, this kind of stuff going forward, because in the end, no matter what, your event, anybody else's event, what we're trying to do, we're trying to educate new podcasters or existing podcasters, and not them be distracted by some marketing message just going to be on the screen. So we want to train people and make them do podcasting for a long time, because in the end, it helps all of us.
Yeah.
You didn't even think about the ads in the camera, did you, Dan? That was
no, but that's going on the tech check checklist and the speaker agreement, and all of those things for sure.
Some people saying, "Damn it, Todd,
Yeah,
this has ruined it for me."
Yeah, what would you tell Dan?
Every chance people have an opportunity to take advantage of a situation, they will. That's what I've learned.
Well,
I've learned.
There's been examples of people getting up and presenting pitches too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So those are things where you've had a policy around for years.
Here's the cool thing about a virtual event: you just cut them.
Pull the plug.
Pull the plug.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Every one of our rooms will have an MC who's there. If someone drops off, they'll pop on. So we might mysteriously lose signal.
All of a sudden, it's replaced by a boo. It's one of the podcast movement signs. Boo, technical difficulties. Or you just got a guy there with a mash button and mashes and it cuts off his microphone. And thank you for attending. But it is. I think that's my point being is after I had this guy in here and done his keynote, I was like, I hadn't even thought about it. So they called me because they knew I had a green screen, and I'm just like, yeah, we can do that. I'm thinking to myself, damn, that's a good idea. How come I haven't been doing that already? And I got a demo room too, so it's just the list goes on. So,
you really need a vacation, Todd.
That's what you need, is another business startup. No,
it's not. And this is my play area, and I call this a boutique production studio. And someone looked at me. I'm in a town where boutique is not a word you use, and because that's considered to be like a hairdresser place or something like that. But no, this is a boutique video production studio. So, you have to arrive here with a big check if you want to play. Seriously. So I had some YouTuber come in and say, I want to use this. I'm like, no. Anyway, go ahead, Rob.
So Dan, are you planning on any kind of surprises for us at the Podcast Movement virtual event? Is there anything that you have up your sleeve that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, every year at the in-person event and the virtual event, try to get some big names, some surprise names in there as keynote speakers that people like to see. I mean, we often those keynote spots just kind of, draw people's interest and be general general information. So it'd be fun to get some bigger names in there. There's some keynote speakers that basically have said, hey, our speaking fee is the same virtually and not. So there's still that that challenge of people. They have to make money too. They used to make money speaking in person. Now they're making money speaking digitally. So we've got stuff like that, but we're hoping that the barrier being removed for people having to travel and take time off work or take time off whatever else that it is they do to be able to join us virtually might open some additional doors. So no promises of big surprises or anything, but promises of hopefully a super well run event that everyone leaves with a lot of value and good times.
Now, because I am controlling the screen, I get to do something here to you, Dan. So what about this?
Oh, Todd, yeah, that's
Good question. No, that's a good question. We've we actually conversation started to get real serious about getting plan in place to bring back the Hall of Fame ceremony, and then all of this hit. A lot of those plans kind of got put on hold, but for anyone who asked a while back, the Hall of Fame is not going away. It's not been acquired or absorbed or sucked into anything. It's still something that we feel very strongly about, but especially with all this virtual stuff going on, kind of feel like it needs to be done the right way, and I'm not sure that virtual is the right way. So right now I don't have any plans or any announcements to do that virtually. But there are conversations going on to try to bring it back in a meaningful way, and that's why it's not happened in several years, is because we didn't have the ability to do it in a meaningful way, and that was the goal, was to make the Hall of Fame a really meaningful thing, and we didn't want to just do it kind of just to do it.
So I do hope that when we do when you do re-engage it, that you do a catch-up year.
I think that makes for sure.
Yeah, it does.
And the awards, we're done with the awards. We tried the awards. We've talked about it before. It was a lot of work and not a lot of thanks, and a lot of money and not a lot of return. So we tried the award thing, and it was interesting, and we put on good productions, but we felt like others could carry the baton. And Todd, you get the thankless task to do it every year, and I know Rob's involved with doing a new version of it. So definitely think it's important, and I definitely think there's a place for it, but we didn't want to be the ones to do it any longer.
Yeah, I've had a drama-free year for the podcast awards until this morning. And I was informed, one of our participants, and I was provided some history and some information, and we have this clause in the podcast awards that basically the spirit of the podcast awards, and I had to disqualify someone this morning because they fell outside really the spirit of the podcast awards. I don't do that lightly. It's the first time we've ever disqualified someone after the slate announcement, but I had really no choice. I won't go into who, what, or where, but you can't know everything about every show. It's just almost impossible. And then when you're provided information and your eyeballs get big and you're like, I don't need to be on CNN tonight. So we had to disqualify a participant today.
Can you
Sounds
share
like
what the general infraction was? Just curious.
Racism.
Ah, okay. Got it.
So
not a good time for that.
No. No. And it probably will make for another topic on the next show, Rob. I'll be able to drive into deeper and some of the inherent problems that are going on because of what's going on and how I came to my decision, but not for today.
Right. Okay.
But that's one of those things that happens, and what can you do? You just and we have no budget. You already know that. It's there's like 3 people that are involved in this, and it's 2 of them are. One is the audit company, and the audit company would have never recognized what was going on, and another person and me. So it's not like we have a budget for this thing. It's not like there's a team. And,
right.
Dan, you already figured out how much it costs to do these events and do them right. And it's hard.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we're at the bottom of the hour,
Oh,
Todd. We
my
made
goodness, we are. And coming out, kind of going off on sour note, but a more positive note, look forward to the event. 67 days, 17 hours, 29 minutes, and 57 seconds from now.
And even less when you hear this.
That's right, because you can just take off another day, maybe. Actually, I don't know. Probably get it out tonight. But
Dan, why don't you tell us how and where to sign up for your virtual event?
Yeah, we've got the new website launched, virtual.podcastmovement.com. We've got the nice countdown at the top so you know how long you have to sign up. We've tried to put as much information as we can about what the virtual event means in our eyes, what our platform looks like, what you can expect, overview of the schedule so you can take your days off or map out your calendar in October accordingly. And yeah, as the event grows closer, we'll start having the speakers announced there, and we'll start having actual sessions on the schedule. And hope, like I said, for us, our goal is to get as many podcasters there as possible. And the biggest goal is as many people as possible who maybe couldn't come to the in-person event, maybe never would be able to come to the in-person event, will still be able to join us virtually and, hopefully become members of the community for life. So that's the big goal. All
right. So everyone, thank you for being here on the New Media Show today. We had a little rough start at the beginning, so hopefully those of you that maybe left caught it via podcast. But again, Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News is my Twitter account. And Dan, what's the best contact for you or for the team?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email, Dan at podcastmovement.com, or if you tweet at us or send us in a DM on Instagram or anything else at Podcast Movement, it'll make its way back to me if it needs to.
And Rob?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and you can send me an email as well. Send it to robg@libsyn.com, and happy to hear from you. So share any tips or things that you're hearing going on out there in the world. So, or in the world of podcasting more specifically. So
yeah, tell us all your secret stuff.
Right. And we'll keep it confidential.
Yeah, and we won't show any email screens either. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being part of the family here. And we'll see you on the New Media Show on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Everyone take care. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.